On April 3, 1995, tech founder Shekhar Radhakrishna was injured in a highway accident. He survived the crash, but his brain activity immediately slowed into a deep, unending sleep. He would remain in a coma for 30 years. His sudden absence created an immediate crisis for his software startup, NovaBridge Systems. The company was days away from closing a massive international partnership in Singapore. Now they were a rapidly growing firm, suddenly flying without their chief executive. At the center of this void was Shekhar's wife, Seetha, a middle school mathematics teacher. She also had an infant son, born just 9 days after the accident. When a central figure is violently erased from a complex system, the pieces they held together begin to drift. The human instinct is to desperately find a way to anchor whatever is left behind. 2 weeks later, NovaBridge held its first post-accident board meeting. Seetha arrived and sat quietly at the edge of the table. She had no official role in the company and no background in enterprise software. She opened a notebook, took out a pen, and began meticulously recording the meeting minutes. Her first entry noted the appointment of Shekhar's brother as interim CEO and recorded that the Singapore partnership was suspended pending further developments. Why document the granular, day-to-day corporate decisions of a software firm for a man who is entirely unconscious? Seetha was creating a bridge. By recording every decision made in his absence, she ensured that if her husband ever returned, he could step back into the room as if he had never left. This chart tracks NovaBridge from 1995 to 2001. The steep angle of early growth suddenly shifts into a grueling, defensive horizontal line for 6 years. Seetha's notebook entries mirrored this flat line, moving away from visionary expansion and settling into the reality of stasis. She was practicing the arithmetic of devotion. As a mathematics teacher, she understood that maintaining a baseline requires relentless effort when conditions refuse to improve. Her routine became defined by numbers. She attended 73 corporate meetings. She visited the care facility every second Thursday of the month, and she raised a son who grew older with every entry. This was the exhausting mathematical discipline of maintaining a routine in the dark, showing up and recording the data even when nothing was getting better. Her son, Ram, spent his early childhood in the margins of these notebooks, quietly reading or doing homework in the corners of Kolkata boardrooms and hospital waiting areas. Throughout this time, the remaining 4 tech founders never questioned Seetha's presence at their most confidential meetings. Her note-taking served as a psychological proxy. By physically keeping Shekhar's chair warm and recording their choices, she forced the surviving team to constantly measure their decisions against his original vision. By acting as a silent anchor, she turned an absence into a presence. The company stayed tethered to its founder long past the point where logic dictated they should let go. Then came September 2001. External global shocks violently collided with NovaBridge's fragile ecosystem. The resulting geopolitical shockwave panicked international markets. The American investors NovaBridge relied on declared force majeure and pulled their capital out of emerging economies entirely. The board was presented with a brutal mathematical reality. Without that investment, the company had a maximum of 4 to 6 months of runway remaining. They made the unanimous, agonizing decision to execute a clean close. They chose to pay off their debts, compensate their employees, and shut down honorably rather than bleed to death. 6 years of meticulous, superhuman endurance could not outlast the mechanics of a global economic collapse. At the final board meeting in December 2001, Seetha sat down and wrote her 73rd entry. She wrote, "NovaBridge Systems closed, December 2001. She dated the page, closed the book, and packed it into a storage box with the other 72. These 73 notebooks held the missing years of Shekhar's life, preserved in sequence for the day he might finally read them. Seetha didn't spend 6 years waiting. She spent them building an archive, ensuring that when her husband finally opened his eyes 24 years later, he would know his life's work had never been abandoned.